So, now that we've got some basic technological things out of the way, we can talk about the most important problem, really, or one of the most important problems with mobile, which is just the diversity of different clients you'll have for your website. And you can think of this in a few different ways. First is you can think of your desktop, web browser, your mobile web browser as being an API client. You can think of the iPhone app, your iPad app, Android devices apps as being, clients. If you're doing a native Mac app or a native Windows app, command line app, third-party API, Twitter cards, Facebook Open Graph, all these different ways of sort of serving up your website content and kind of ordering them in rough priority right now. You start to see that you need to know all these different languages to actually build clients in all these for these different platforms. So this is one way of thinking about the issue with mobile is really like an API client profusion issue. And this is more general than just mobile itself. You think of mobile as a subset of the API client issue. Another way of looking at it from just the hardware end of things is looking at all the diversity of screen widths that you have, especially on Android, and the Android OS fragmentation problem, i.e. all the different versions of Android and the percentages of different manufacturers' phones that are running on them. You can't assume that people are on the very latest version. There's still quite a lot of people who are running Gingerbread, which is a fairly old version of Android. Now, Google is fixing this in a lot of different ways. They've got this thing where they've got a layer where they're pushing patches without upgrading the version. So they're fixing the fragmentation problem. It will get better and better, but it's still an issue right now. So given that you've got this degree of fragmentation and so on, the question of what you actually build at what time is an important question. So to answer this question is actually relatively simple, even though it seems complicated. I wanted to give the broad kind of set of all problems, then we can sort of slice it off. And really the choices between, do you want an app that's available on all platforms right away, even if it's maybe a little bit slow, and then a mobile web app with responsive web design is probably a pretty good first cut. Do you want to maximize current App Store revenue, in which case you want to do a native iOS app? Or do you want to maximize the number of handset users and perhaps future app revenue, in which case maybe an Android app first might be your best bet? So these are really, I'd say, your three choices just from an immediate implementation standpoint. Technically, you can use, when you're dealing with client diversity, you can use the one-size-fits-all approach of responsive web design. I recommend that when you're just getting started. And in that case, you're returning the same HTTP response for all the queries, and all the logic of slicing it for this versus that client is done in CSS with media queries. The other extreme is to just deliver like a custom mobile optimized site. As much as people beat up on user agent sniffing, it's done by Facebook, Google, Airbnb, Twitter, The Guardian, TechCrunch. Lots of other major sites will serve up URLs like m.example.com. And an even more labor-intensive version is then building like both a mobile app and a native app for each client, and you can do that if you're Facebook or Google or something like that. And so the thing about this though is this is generally too much investment for a small company. You want to pick one or a few platforms based on this criteria above. Are you looking for availability? Are you looking for App Store revenue? Are you just trying to maximize the number of handset users? What is your objective criteria right now? And that kind of tells you whether you want to do a responsive web app or an iOS app or an Android app first. And that's one way to respond to client diversity is you just take the 80-20 solution.